Hello and welcome to the Wonder Women segment of the Maker Mom podcast. My name is Katie Freeman and I am the host of this podcast. Every week I bring you the interview of a new female or non-binary rock star maker and tell you the story about their journey into making and how they're rocking it right now. This week's episode is with EJ of Hurricane Woodwork. And before we hop into the podcast interview, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the patrons over on Patreon. So, thank you so much, Bonnie Tool Mom Bonnie, Laura, Oakley Soap Company, Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou, Amy, Bison Valley Carving, Dan and Kelly Reclaimed Living Store, Brandy, Studio Obey, Kathy, One Girl and Her Tools, Ellen, Little Bear Furniture, Ethan Carter Design. Thank you all so very much. I appreciate your ongoing support over on Patreon. And make sure you stick around so you can find out how you can support the podcast going forward. All right, let's hop on into the episode with EJ. Well, EJ, I always have people introduce themselves on the podcast. So let's just kind of start there. Who are you?
Hello, everybody. My name is EJ Duff-Berger. My parents were never married, but I still got my own name hyphenated at 18. But I was named for my great Aunt Betty. She was awesome. She was a vet in World War II, old school lesbian. I take after her a lot. And yeah, I started woodworking really seriously about 5 years ago. I did like a couple wood shop classes in high school, but really that's like the extent of my background. I went to college. I went to Dickinson in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and I got a very, very useful degree in sociology. And I'm a huge information junkie. I love to learn anything and everything. Like if there's something I don't know, I find a way to figure it out and learn about it. And so I have like a gigantic stack of books on stuff that I'm like, why do I know this? Like, why? I'm also an animal junkie. I have 8 pets. I have 4 cats, 3 dogs, 10 fish, and a horse. They are my life. I have been with my horse for 15 years, and everyone else has come into my life since then. I have a 19-year-old male dog that we genuinely have no idea how he's still alive. He's a pit, so he should not have lived that long, and yet here he is. And he has his moments of being delightful. Otherwise, he's just a grumpy old man. He's like that war veteran who like sits on his porch with a gun and he's like, get off my lawn.
Yes.
Like, why? That guy. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the crux of me. I've been with my partner for 5 years. I think it'll be 5 years this November. We both forget our anniversary constantly, so I don't feel too guilty that I genuinely don't remember what year we're on. And yeah, so that's me. I also okay. I'm genderqueer. I'm a Jew, sort of. I'm a really bad Jew, like the worst Jew. I'm genetically Jewish. I am not even adjacent to religious, but I am spiritual, so I guess call it what you will. Yeah, I get really obsessive about things. Yeah,
okay.
Like anything that I'm like newly into, I get like obsessively into it. And then I've always been kind of fickle because I really love like a bunch of different things. And like I said before, I love to learn. So I tend to bounce from thing to thing. And actually woodworking, this is the longest I've been with anything other than horses. So Here's hoping it sticks.
Well, fantastic introduction, and I will say, you being an animal lover means you will not mind the furry co-hosts that are part of the
Oh God,
podcast.
no, please.
The occasional the 4-month-old kittens who occasionally pop in, and and I have a grumpy old man dog as well, but he is only 10 years old. Yeah.
We have a shop rat somewhere in here. There is a rat in my shop that the first time I saw it, I actually, like, I grew up in a horse barn, but the first time I saw this rat, I stood up and screamed. Like, this rat is the size of a Cocker Spaniel, and I lost my mind. I was like, oh no. It ran right at me, and I was like, I am out. Goodbye. I'm
That's
done.
right. I'm surprised you're back in the shop. I would have just like
my God,
put it up for sale or whatever.
This rat was so big, and I was like eating a PB&J, and he was like, "You gonna share that?" And I was like, "Oh, why?" I was so upset.
All right. So you're in Pennsylvania. You grew up in Pennsylvania?
Sort of. I actually moved around a lot. I was born in Philly, and I lived in Philly until I was 7. And then when my dad passed, my mom moved us up to Vermont, where my mom's sister and brother-in-law were. So then I lived in Vermont for like 16 years. Okay. And then I went to boarding school in Maine for 2 years. And then I moved back to Pennsylvania and went to college in Carlisle. And then moved home for a year after I graduated, and then came to Philly. And I've been in Philly for about 7 years now.
Okay. So you've been woodworking for 5 years. Mm-hmm. What got you, besides, the couple of shop classes, what got you into woodworking?
Yeah, so I was working as a dog walker, and I'd been doing that for like 3 years. And then I needed extra money, so I picked up a side hustle with a guy who owns a construction company. And given that I've been horseback riding for 30 years, my spine and my knees were like, cool, so demolition work? No. And I was like, but it's good money. Like, it could work. And my body was like, yeah, no. Like, every time I would like bend down or like crouch, my knees, like the cartilage is completely gone. So it just like grinds on itself. And after I demoed a bathroom so like there's a neighborhood called Fishtown in Philly, and it's like all of the buildings in Philly are like 4 stories tall, but there are no elevators in anything, like ever, unless it's new construction. So I demoed this bathroom on the 4th floor by myself and had to carry all of the removable tile. Like, I had to take all that out by myself. And it was like 2,000 pounds of tile. And after toting that down 4 flights of stairs, I was like, cool. So consider this my notice. This is terrible. And I'm out. Love you. Appreciate the opportunity. Bye. So I quit that. And then I had bought tools, and I'd been given tools by this guy who became one of my best friends. He gave me like my first set of like construction tools, like a bag and a crowbar and a hammer and a little like Ryobi 6.5-inch circular saw. And that was like my starter kit. And I had like, random odds and other ends. And then I was like, all right, well, I've got these tools. Like, what the hell am I going to do with them? So then I was like, all right, well, we really need a shoe rack. So I went and I found a pallet, and I did like all the research on like pallets and like heat treated versus like all the other crap that you can find, and like hardwood versus softwood, taught myself about that. Like, I knew nothing. So I like looked into all this stuff, and I was like, all right, so I want heat treated. I want it to be, I want it to be eco-friendly. I don't want to poison myself. I don't want to poison my pets. because I was also working in my basement, which is like 200 square feet, maybe, and really dark. There is one light bulb. It is like, it's like the basement out of The Shining. It's terrifying. Like, it's so creepy. Like, the walls are definitely like old plaster with brick behind the plaster, but the plaster is like coming off, so the brick is exposed, and it, like, the whole place just looks like it's falling down around you. So I'm in there doing my woodworking, and I was like, all right. So I get, you know, all the information I need as far as, you know, what to do with a pallet, and then I literally just used the circular saw and the hammer and I bought like a little palm sander, like the world's crappiest palm sander. And it took forever. It took so long that I was like, why in the devil did I do this? But I was like, it's cool. I needed it, and it's good for the environment. And I was like really proud of myself. So I think I spent like probably 15 hours on that first shoe rack, like an aggressive amount of time. And it's literally 6 pieces of wood. Like, it is 6 pieces of wood screwed together. And and I had bought myself a drill and driver set by Makita, which I absolutely loved. And so, you know, I spent 15 hours on it and then put it up in my house, and my girlfriend was so excited. And so I was like, cool, now what? And then I like made a little table, and then my best friend saw my shoe rack and she was like, oh, I want one. So then I started selling them she like gave me the idea to sell them on Etsy, and I started selling them for like $45. 15 hours for $45. And my best friend was like, okay, so we really need to talk. Like, we really have to talk about how much you're charging for these things, because $45, just no. Like, right. You have to raise your prices. And I was like, but I wouldn't pay more than $45 for a shoe rack. And I was like, I know, sweetie, and you are not your target market. Right. Like, I was like, I don't even know what that means. And she was like, oh my God. So then she and I like sat down basically and had a little business meeting. And then over the next like 4 years, she just constantly berated me to raise my prices. Like, every time I made something, she was like, okay, so how much are you asking for that? And I like told her some like absurdly low price. And she was like, cool, so we're just going to double that. And I was like, but that seems greedy. And she was like, no. So yeah, so that, you know, over time, it just kind of grew and blossomed. And I think I've sold like 200 shoe racks at this point. And after the first 40, my best friend finally convinced me to actually raise the prices, which my first price range, mind you, was from $45 to $65. And she was like, I'm going to kill you. Sorry. So that was that.
So I would hope it takes you less time than 15 hours now to make a shoe rack.
It definitely does, because my first big purchase was the rigid 13-inch planer, which I literally had until like last month. So yes, I'd replaced the blades on it several times, but because definitely you learn, do not feed a piece of pallet wood through the planer when there's still a nail in it. Don't do that. Don't do that. I learned the hard way. And you should have seen that blade. I was
sure.
Like, gee, I wonder why there's a giant unplaned section in this piece of wood. Well, EJ, that is because you fed a freaking nail through the planer and it destroyed the blade. Good job. Mm-hmm. Good job. Yeah. So I learned that lesson. But yeah, literally every poor decision I've made, I've learned from, and that's been my learning curve. It's been aggressive. It's been a really intense one, but it's working out.
Nice. Is woodworking like your sole job now? I mean, is that?
It is.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I technically, according to my taxes, turned a profit last year by like, nice. Not much, but I turned a profit. So I was like, all right, year 4, I see you.
Yeah,
I see you.
I made $100 of profit last year, so
that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I totally understand the struggle is real.
It really is. This business, it's like, you know, I grew up in the horse world, and I was just talking to someone the other day about how like this guy he knew was trying to make a lot of money in the horse world. And I was like, you're in the wrong business, dude.
Right.
Like, you're not, this is not where you go when you want to make money. And I'm tragically learning that lesson twice in woodworking. Like, you're just like, God damn it. I thought I was getting into something that would be lucrative. Like, nope, nope.
Well, I mean, hopefully it will, right? You continue to raise those prices.
Absolutely. And I've gotten to a point where I actually have a really good pricing structure, and I'm proud of my pricing structure because, you know, part of my other thing in starting this business was that I didn't want to be one of those, like, I don't know, like people who charge so much money that it prices everyone out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like I got into this because I was really upset with the way that capitalism works and how it continually disenfranchises particularly minority communities, Black communities, Latino communities, queer communities. You know, like it continuously disenfranchises us at really unequal rates, and it's crap, you know. And so I got into this because I wanted to be able to make life affordable in a way that I could be self-sustaining without being that guy, you know. Like I didn't want to be, I don't know, you know, like straight white guys always get like some little amount of money and they try and figure out how to turn it into so much more money. And usually, unfortunately, that happens by screwing over other people. And I didn't want to do that. Like I didn't want to be that guy. So I have made my pricing structure, I think it's pretty unique. You know, I have, you know, the whole hourly wage, and I have the whole, you know, materials costs and everything factored in. And then I have, you know, like I factor in a profit margin, but my profit margin changes, you know, and I don't know if this is ethical or not, but for me, it makes sense. You know, my profit margin changes depending on who I'm selling to. And like sometimes with certain people, like I will veto the profit margin entirely, you know, like if, you know, for example, I'm in the process of doing a bed frame for a really wonderful woman and her husband who run two nonprofits. So they also make no money at all. Like when you're, you know, like lesbians know when you work in the nonprofit industry, you're broke as hell for the rest of your life.
Yep.
So, you know, it's like our calling. But like they're both queer. They just happen to be married to each other. And I was like, you know what? Like it's fine. I'll do this bed frame for X amount of money. And she was like, oh my God, I love you. So, you know, and it's enough that, you know, I'm paying myself for my time and I'm covering my costs on the materials end, but I'm also not like, my business isn't making any money on it. You know, I'm not, I'm definitely not accruing any profit. I'm not putting away any savings from it, but I feel good about that because she's a member of my community. She, you know, is dedicating her life to helping other people. And like, why can't I, you know, veto my own profit margin to give back to someone like that? And so like in those instances, like I've worked really hard to be where I am, and I've worked really hard to, I don't know, run the kind of business that I want to run. And I don't ever want to be one of those people who's, when I eventually have an employee or multiple employees, I don't ever want them to look at me and go, you know what, like you're really nice and everything, and like you're kind of cool, but like this isn't how you run a business. Like you don't underpay the people who are doing the physical labor for you. Like that's just shitty. So I don't know. I've really worked to have my profit margin and my general pricing structure try to reflect that even now.
Yeah, I guess, do you predominantly, I guess, do you search out people from minority communities to help serve in that way? Or
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So like my employees, I don't have any actual employees right now, but I have independent contractors that I work with, and I have, you know, like I've taken on a couple of apprentices over the last couple of years, or I should say the last year. And they're always some member of the minority community. Like, I'm sorry, but straight white men have enough of an upper hand. Like, they're good. So they can go get a job literally from anyone else.
Right.
And like, if they're really nice guys, like I am friends with 2 straight white men. So I'm not a bigot, guys. I have straight white male friends. They're few and far between, but they do exist. That does not make me bigoted. Maybe a little, but no, I'm just kidding. So no, but I do have like a couple of straight guy friends who are, you know, white guys, and they both are in the construction world or in, you know, like the guy who gave me my first job, he's a straight white guy. And then I recently met another straight white guy this year who we became like fast friends. And like I guess I have 3 straight white male friends, but I have another in Arizona who I'm very fond of. And they're all like really genuine, great guys who I've like thoroughly vetted and totally put them through their paces on like, okay, so ideologies, here we go. But yeah, no, so it's my employees, I definitely make a very conscious effort to, I don't know, employ someone who wouldn't automatically get that opportunity. Right. And I'm a part of a couple different groups for like women in woodworking and female woodworkers and tradesmen and all that jazz. But like I have a queer female electrician who I work with, whose dog I actually used to walk, which is just like an amazing coincidence. And then I have, you know, like a couple of apprentices who are women, one's white, one's black. And, you know, so it's, I do my best. Because I think it's important.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to kind of lead into like, my other question was going to be, I've had this conversation about access a lot, where I struggle too, where, you know, and my wife will actually even say sometimes like, I'll make something and then, you know, put a price on it. And she's like, but nobody can afford that. And it's like, but we're not my demographic. We're not who I'm making this for. And so I've gone the route of, and others have gone the route of like, okay, we need to make a living, right? And so off of this, or that's our hope anyways, is to make a living off of it. So
or at least be able to do this and not have 3 additional jobs.
Right, exactly. So if that's going to be, you know, how we have to sell in order to make this viable, then how I create access is through creation of content and through teaching and through saying, okay, if person XYZ could never afford what I make, then I'll teach them how to make what I make so that it's something they can create for themselves.
Absolutely.
Has that ever been something like a path you've considered going down? All right, I'm super excited for this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is Tool Mom Bonnie, or Tool Mom and Company. So Tool Mom and Company is for all ages, genders. They have what you need for your one-stop tool-related merchandise of gifts or clothing or both. Her products are fun, fashionable, one of a kind. And you can check her out at www.toolmomstore.com or find her on Instagram under Tool Mom Bonnie, and Bonnie's Bonnie. You can receive an extra 20% off at checkout by using the coupon code MakerMom. So I have 2 of her mugs. I have one that says, I believe, what is it? Oh my gosh. One is like the definition of a tool woman, and the other one is just like a circular saw with flames coming off of it, and I believe it says Go Girl on it, and they're super fun mugs. I love drinking coffee out of them in the morning. If it's not out of my Wonder Woman mug, it is out of one of those two mugs. So you definitely should at least check out the mugs, if nothing else. And remember, extra 20% off at checkout by using the code MakerMom. All right, thank you to Mom Bonnie, and let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, it's one that I'm actually considering pretty intensely right now. So content creation was never something that I even thought about because in my mind, like I was always like, okay, but there's so much out there. Like there's already so many people and amazing people who make amazing things. So why am I going to add to that? Like, what am I going to add? Like, what is going to make it worth it for me to add this thing to the internet that, you know, it's like every time you write a line in a paper or in a book or whatever, that line has been written at least 50 times. So why should someone read my work, or why should someone watch my YouTube video, or why should someone watch me just because I'm gay, like just because I'm a female, like just because, you know,
I think it's representation matters.
I 100% agree with you that representation does matter. I guess for me, my hang up was always like, okay, like it's a lot of effort. Like it's a lot of extra steps. It's a lot of extra explaining. And like, I would love to teach a class. I would love to have people physically in my space. I mean, obviously not right now with COVID, but just in general, like I always loved teaching and I would love to do that in my physical space. But I guess, you know, I didn't really see the point in putting it on the internet just because, you know, like it's already there. Someone's already done it. So why, you know, I mean, maybe they have to search a little bit harder to find that one person who already did that one exact video. And so there, I guess, is my answer. I should probably just do it and put it on the internet to give multiple people multiple avenues of things to watch. And maybe people don't want to watch another straight white dude do a video. So like, I'm here for that. But maybe they do, you know, maybe gender doesn't matter. Whatever. I don't know. So yeah, I've been jockeying that idea around a lot, and I've been thinking about it a lot more. And I've, you know, been setting up my camera and, you know, trying to have the angle be what it is right now, which took me like a good couple minutes to figure out. And just like videoing, you know, like what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and what my process is and what my layout is and, you know, how I'm navigating kind of breaking into this world, which is, I think, in a sense, more important than what I'm physically doing, if that makes sense. You know, like it's not. So I think that that's probably going to be the route that I take more in the content creation. Like, okay, yeah, I've made this cool thing. So have, you know, everybody else. So, you know, and I follow some really incredible guys, but like, how am I making a difference? How am I going about breaking into this boys club? Because it is still very much a boys club. And anybody who's worked on a site or in a shop or anything, you know, with anybody else, like literally, even if it's just you and one other person, you know, that dude is going to explain some shit to you that you're like, I didn't actually need you to explain that.
Right.
That wasn't my question. You've gone on a tangent explaining like every aspect of what got me to right here.
Right.
Please just answer my actual question. I'm begging you. But yeah,
so, I mean, I think
is important.
Yeah,
You're right, though.
I think you answered kind of like your own question of like why you though, because I have found that even if I ask 10 different woodworkers to make a table, you know, and gave some just like general guidelines, that table is going to come out 10 different ways.
That's true.
You know, and they're going to use probably, you know, 10 different methods to make it.
Yeah.
And so I guess through my podcast, I have found even more so, I mean, I knew this anyways, but representation truly matters. And it has been proven like that, especially women, and I would say probably any other, marginalized group too, wants to learn from somebody like them. Like it makes it
Yeah.
more appealing and
Yeah.
it seems more real. If I could
Yeah.
go take, and I still fall into that bucket. Like,
Makes it seem like something you can actually do.
right. And to your point, like I'll search out a class, like a woodworking class if I'm going to do that, or like I have an interest in like blacksmithing or whatever. I'm going to look for the class that's taught by a woman versus taught
Yeah.
by a man, because I don't want the extra explanation of the things I already know.
Right.
I want to
Right.
be respected when I walk in that class, that perhaps I actually know some things when I come there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I agree. There's a lot of amazing makers out there who have put stuff out on YouTube and making amazing stuff. I'm not discounting the straight white guy at all.
Oh,
But,
no. I mean, he's had years and years of practice doing this.
right.
His dad taught him. His dad taught him.
Right.
His dad's dad taught his dad.
Right.
Like, Jesus. All right. My dad didn't teach me shit.
Right.
He put me on a horse.
So I'm not discounting that at all, but I think, I don't know. I think it's just it matters to see you doing something versus, I don't know. I don't want to like call out people, but like
No, totally.
But
like the average white dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No offense to any of you average white dudes listening to this.
Exactly.
Don't take any offense.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sensitive.
But I love that too. Like you said, you're taking on apprentices. That's something that I have a dream of doing. Like partially a reason that I have said is okay, like to charge what I charge for certain pieces, is to say I need to become successful so that I can hire the people I want to hire to work for me, and none of them are going to be straight white dudes. I'm just going to say that. Like none of them are going to be straight white dudes.
I mean, like I said before, there's plenty guys out there, straight white men. There are plenty of woodworkers who will give you a chance.
Right.
I'm not one of them.
That's right.
So sorry.
That's right.
My bad.
So do you predominantly make pieces, like are you commissioned to make pieces predominantly, or do you like make your
Yes.
Do you still have your Etsy store that you're making like your own pieces and stuff for?
Yes and no. So like my Etsy store, because of space availability, has always been made to order. Okay. So what I would do in order to like make something for the listing, I would make things that I needed in my own house, or that like my best friend needed, or that, Joe Schmo down the block needed. And then I would take really good pictures, really, really good pictures back in the day. You should see some of my early photography. It was terrible. But I would take pictures, and then my partner is a graphic designer, so I'm blessed. And so I send her my god-awful photography, and then she yells at me for my god-awful photography, and then she edits my god-awful photography and makes it look halfway decent. When I send her a decent photo, she makes it look incredible. So I'm blessed. But yeah, so I would make everything to order, and I would post, the photo of the finished product, and then I'd be like, okay, and I can do it, any color. And then when I would make it in that different color, then I would take a picture of that, and then I would post that. And that's how my Etsy works. Okay. Nothing on Etsy is ready to go ever. And I have a minimum 6-week turnaround time for everything. If it's multiple projects in one order, that 6-week turnaround time,
right,
it just keeps growing. Like I got one order in March, like right at the start of COVID. And she was like, okay, I want 3 plant tables, and I want a credenza, and I want, what was the other thing? There was another table, I think, or it was a bed frame. Oh, and bedside tables. So she did the bed frame right before COVID hit. I delivered it literally the day before we hit lockdown. And then she wanted 2 bedside tables to go with it, 3 plant tables, and a credenza. And I was like, cool. I'm still not done the credenza. Everything else is done. But that credenza is like, it is rough sawn over there right now. I'm like looking at it and I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. It'll happen. I promise. But yeah, so then, you know, and everything is still, I really like the commission piece because I'm not fronting the money for a lot of the material. Pretty much every penny of profit goes right back into this thing anyway. So, you know, either I'm buying a new tool or I'm stocking up on wood so that I have some stock for like the really odd gigs that I get. Like people are really, really into bath caddies right now. I think a lot of people are bathing more than normal. So, you know, like people are buying like a lot of bath caddies. And so I have like a small amount of like live edge, you know, bath caddy stock that's like between 30 and 40 inches and whatever. But otherwise, I don't really have a huge stockpile of wood. I mean, I say as like underneath my bench is all just like random cut off material and like other random like little live edge pieces that I've picked up here and there. And so it's like perfect for coffee tables. So that's part of why in my giveaway I was like, you get a coffee table because I have so much. Fine.
Yeah, I tend to be a wood hoarder. Right now you can't walk around my shop really. There's like a designated path that goes like around the workbench and like through the wood piles, and that's about it.
On my last trip to the lumberyard, I came back with so much wood that so I have a RAV4, and the back of the RAV4, you opened the door and it was floor to ceiling wood. And my lumber guy was like, I'm going to need you to drive really carefully home because I'm genuinely afraid for your life right now. And I was like, I understand that because looking at this, I feel like I may have gone a little overboard. But I mean, it's already in there.
Right.
So, and you're like an hour and a half away. So not going to make multiple trips. And he was like, please buy a truck. I'm begging you. Please buy a truck. Like, someday. And then I got back here and I like built this really, really shitty wood storage like situation. It was terrifying. My buddy came in who does construction with me and he was like, looks great. Don't you build nice furniture? And I was like, you know, I do. And he was like, you can tell. I was like, Chris, get out.
That's right.
Get out. I was like, look, buddy, construction is not my bag, okay? I can't build a wall. Like, I just can't do it. Like, I can't. I'm terrified of framing. Like, I'm good. So,
I'm also like not good at building shop furniture. Like, I think it's more.
It's hard.
Well, and it's just like, I'd rather spend my time making something else that I like, that's going to be pretty, not something that I'm going to like intentionally like damage through.
Yeah. My current bench top seriously looks like I've taken multiple saws and a hammer to it on purpose. I'm like, I didn't. It was an accident. Sorry.
I didn't
set the depth on my track saw right. Yeah. Like gouged like gigantic holes.
I would expect. Yeah. See, I get that though.
It's terrible.
But it makes sense, right? It's a workbench. Makes total sense.
Totally valid. Totally valid.
So obviously you're not in a basement anymore. I can tell, you know, by looking that you're not in the basement anymore.
I am not. It's pretty phenomenal. I moved in here last June. When last June I got an order for 4 22-foot live edge countertops and a conference table. Nice. And I was like, cool, I can't do that here. So I have to move and I guess I'll figure that out. And I, by some luck, met Matt, and he, like he emailed me out of the blue and was like, hey, I heard, from so-and-so that you're looking for a shop space. I have this space. You want to come look at it? And I was like, yeah. So I came and I looked and I was like, this is dope. And I had it like in the worst setup on the planet, literally until like a month ago when everything was stolen and I had to replace everything. And I was like, I'm going to reorganize. Like, this seems like now is the time. And yeah, I love it now. It's like my favorite place. I sometimes just come here and like sit and like draft, and I have this cute little stool that I'm sitting on, and my bench is great. I can't wait to redo the top of it, but that's my last like shop project for a minute that like I want to get done. And I need to, my buddy Chris is moving out of here at the end of August. And then I'll be flying solo on this space. So it's kind of like I'm moving again almost, because I'll be adding about 300 square feet to my space, which is pretty exciting. Right now, the whole space itself is 610 square feet. And I have like 2/3 of it because he does construction. So he just uses this place for tool storage.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so I'll be taking over the rest of the space, and I'll be getting a table saw, and then that's, between the table saw and my shop bench top, those are my last additions to this space. And I'm beyond pumped.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love my space. I love it.
That's awesome.
And I may or may not be building a wall between, not to sound like our dear president, but my shop space is very open on the one side, which is great I like the feel of it, make my space feel even bigger. But security wise, it's not the most fortified as far as my space versus everyone else's. And like, no one else in here is going to touch my stuff, but we were, just robbed. So having an added door would be a good investment for me, I think.
So yeah, what happened there? What did the whole space
really
get robbed?
Yeah, so we like our space is in the worst street in the worst neighborhood in Philadelphia. Like,
of course it is.
Like, I honestly, like, I can't even fully explain to you how bad this neighborhood is. Like, and I love Philly. I love Philly. I love my city. I love the people. I love that, our tagline is "the weak will be killed and eaten." Like, I think this city is awesome. Like, it's rough around the edges. It's abrasive. It's me in a city, and I love it. But this neighborhood needs some work. There is an aggressive amount of drug use. There is a lot of gang issues. And really, it's just a lot of people struggling to survive. So like this neighborhood needs some love, and like a lot of it, so much. Anyway, so our shop space, the way that it's set up is, we have a human door that has 2 locks on it, and then that leads into a hallway, and then there's another human door that has 2 locks on it, and that was fine. But then our loading dock door is a gigantic industrial sliding steel or whatever door. Yeah. And the way that we had it locked was we had 2 hinges that flipped on the sides to prevent people from being able to pull it out off the wall, and 1 lock in the middle, which we thought was enough. Turns out not so much, because they put a sawzall through the wall and the door, cut the hinge, sent some tiny skinny person through to unlock it, opened the doors, drove a big ass truck in here, closed up the doors, loaded everything up, and drove back out. And we didn't have an alarm system. We didn't have cameras. We didn't have like anything, because we were just like, well, it's like Fort Knox. Like, who's getting in?
Right.
So now it really is Fort Knox, and it takes like 10 minutes to get in and out of the building, which is frustrating, but at least, our stuff won't be stolen. And now we all have insurance, like my.
I was going to ask that, like, did you have
Now we do. No, because again, $4, who's getting in? So yeah, now I have general liability as well as, insurance for theft and fire. And now so does everybody else. But there's six guys, like there's 6 of us in here total. And between all of us, we lost about $90,000. It came out to about 15 each. So it's been a very crazy month. A lot of moving parts, a lot of stress, a lot of angst, and like general heartbreak, just because, they're just tools, but it was like my entire everything. Like
right.
I put my blood, my sweat, my tears, my life savings. It was my life savings, my income, and my retirement plan, and all of it was gone. Right. And I just and I woke up at like 7:30 to a call from Matt being like, hey, and I panicked, and I was like, Matt, can you check and see if my Festival Domino joiner is still there? Because that was my most expensive tool.
Well, yeah.
And he looked and he was like, no, it's all gone. And I just sobbed. I was like, okay. And I cried for like 10 minutes. And then I realized that Matt hadn't called my buddy Chris, who also shared the space with me. And so I called Chris, and I pulled myself together, and I was like, oh shit, I have to call Chris. And my partner was lying next to me, and she was like, what is happening? Why are you hysterical? And I was like, because it's all gone. I don't even know how to handle this. So we all came in, later that morning and talked to the cops, and it was just it was bananas. And then it was to add insult to injury, I don't think it was even the robbers at this point. I think the burglars left the doors open, and then the neighborhood drug addicts came in. But there were needles everywhere, heroin needles were everywhere. They'd set up a little space in the side, in the empty space to shoot up. And so there was just this little commune area. It looked like a fire, a little fire pit. Right. You sit around a fire pit, except that there was nothing in the middle except a pile of dirty needles. And they drank my beer. I was just what? What? Are you fucking kidding me? So that was just wow. And of course, we haven't found it. I don't think we ever will. I think that, whoever, we still don't know, how they found out and but they knew what they were here for.
Well, so yeah, that seems like a very organized crime right there.
Yeah. And I don't it was also very, I don't know, it was weird. It was very Miracle Unexplained-esque in the sense that I had, at the start of COVID, I changed my work schedule completely because I wanted to not be here when anybody else was here. And, so there's 6 guys sharing the space. So I would come at 4 and I would work until 2 in the morning. And then I would go home, and I felt fine about that because when I would get here, it was still daylight, so It was fine. And then I'd leave at 2 in the morning, and everyone was already asleep. Everyone was already too high to mess with me. So and the gang leaders were asleep, and I felt fine with that. I was all right, whatever. It's a little nerve wracking, but it's literally 2 in the morning, so no one's awake. And the day before, my partner and I had messed up our plan. We had double booked our evening schedule. And so we rescheduled with her sister to hang out, the next night instead. So the next night, instead of, coming in at 4, I came in at 9 and I worked until 5 or 6. I think I worked until 6. And then I went home for dinner. And that night, we were hit. And I was I don't understand. Like, I should have been there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no reason that I shouldn't have been there. Like, I should have been there. So like, what happened? Like, why wasn't I there? And so it's, and, my best friend is very, very religious. And she was like, that's God. That's God. And I was like, is it? I'm not sure. She was like, God just needed you out the way. And I was like, okay, but I don't believe in God. And she was like, that's okay though, because I believe in God. And you know how like when you are best friends with someone, their family adopts you? And I was like, yes. She was like, well, God's my father. So God adopted you because you love me. And I was like, I don't think that's how that works. And she was like, EJ, that's definitely how that works. And I was like, okay. We'll go with it.
Yeah.
Sure. Whatever, fine. So, and then, like after I posted about it and like all these donations came in and people started sending tools from like literally people from Canada have been sending me tools. Like, it's been incredible. Mm-hmm. And she was like, yep, God needed to bless you. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So
but anyway, that is good that you weren't there that night, because, that could
but
have ended up really bad.
It really could. And like, because of that, I've deliberated a lot on whether or not to move my shop space to another part of town. I was trying to find another space in another neighborhood, but, I'm very much priced out of all of the other neighborhoods in mm-hmm. Philly and really anywhere else, like even a different street I'm priced out of. So it's, here I stay. Mm-hmm. But at any rate, I still have to convince my girlfriend, or my fiance, I should say, that, I'm safe here because I come in the morning and I leave by 6 and it's daylight and it's fine. And like, in the winter, I'll leave earlier and it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And she's like, but she's like, so help me Jesus if you are not That's home right. by 8. Okay. I will be home. I swear to God.
That's right.
But yeah.
All right, EJ. Well, we're actually at the end of our time together. So right. Yeah, I want to give you a chance though to like let people know how they can find you on all of the interwebs.
Yeah, absolutely. So across the webs, the intergalactic spaces, I am at Hurricane Woodwork, both on Philly that's a lie. Both on Instagram and Facebook. My website is hurricanewoodwork.com, and I'm on Etsy, but pretty rarely at this point. But you can also find my handle there as well.
Okay, awesome. And I'll have the links to all of those in the show notes.
Cool.
So that will all be available. Though I have to ask, Hurricane Woodworks, how'd that name come up? I got to know that.
So that was actually a nickname given to me by an old boss. So I worked at, like I said before, as a dog walker for a company in Philly. And one day, I was 22 when I started working for her. And I came into the office one day and I'm kind of a morning person in the sense that once I've had my coffee, I'm like, hi, how's it going? Oh my God, how are you? What are you up to? Well, how was your weekend? Like, what did you get up to? And she was like, oh my God, you are like a hurricane. Sit down, like just sit down. And so that, after that day, like she literally called me Hurricane Edge forever. Like she still does. And so that became a nickname that I carried. It's my personal Instagram handle, Hurricane Edge. And the Edge is from Siri. She put EJ into her phone and she did the voice to text thing, and Siri was like, what would you like to say to Edge stuff? And she was like, oh my God. So that's how that all started. And so, then when I started this business, I was like, Hurricane Edge, Hurricane Woodwork. Yeah, cool. And so I loved it. And yeah, I actually still have a little note that she wrote to me the day that she nicknamed me Hurricane, because she was like, oh my God, you're like a natural disaster. You come in here and you just disrupt everything. And I was so hurt. I was like, what? Like the manager was like turned slowly to her and was like, seriously? I was like about to cry, and so she was like on a call, and she like wrote me this note, and she was like, Hurricane Edge is not disruptive. She is a naturally occurring disaster who is sometimes a little wild, but ultimately restores everything to the equilibrium. And I was like, thank you, and I like still have it. So that's the story there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for chatting with me today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it has. Okay, so again, that was EJ with Hurricane Woodwork. You can check out the show notes and find out how you can follow along with EJ, either going to makermompodcast.com, hitting podcast and finding this week's show notes and all the previous week's show notes. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, I have links down below in the description for you to follow along with EJ. All right, if you are enjoying the podcast and want to help others find the podcast, you can go over to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like or dislike button and leave a comment down below. And most importantly, make sure that whatever you are listening or watching to the podcast on, that you hit that subscribe button. So that's super easy, doesn't cost you anything, and really helps the podcast algorithm out. Now, if you want to up your game, join the podcast tribe, you can head on over to patreon.com/MakerMomPodcast, and there's several different tier levels you can join in with, and forgive the furry co-host Blaze. All right, so there's a $1, $3, and $5 tier level that has different merchandise and also gets you a shout out at the start of every episode of the podcast. And then there is a brand new tier level, which is a $30 a month tier level that makes you an official sponsor of the podcast and gets you your very own ad spot. Now, those spots are limited due to you don't want this podcast to be chock full of sponsored ad posts. So just know that those spots are limited to just a few. All right. And then if you just want to, get some merchandise, you can head on over to my design and make website, freemanfurnishings.com/shop, and get yourself a Maker Mom tee. All right. So this is Wednesday. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. Happy hump day, and I will see you next week.